Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And I'm actually here this week, so there's something to be said for that, I guess. Last week, as you may have noticed, I was off in virtual Mormon country with Bryce Blankenagel, talking about all things Mormon, so that was very fun. But it's not quite the same as being here on my own damn show, so here I am. Yay! So, of course, out from the wilds of Pennsylvania, Beth joins us as usual, and at some point she might be mauled by a small kitten.
Yeah.
Running around somewhere.
She's, yeah, I think she's nope, she's laying under the desk. That must be her new spot.
Well, as long as she's not crawling up your leg, okay. That's a really good thing.
Yeah, she's a good little it. I don't know what she is yet. So it might change to Zorro instead of Zoe.
We had another suggestion, but we'll get to that later. And from the wilds of Mississippi, good evening, Miss Mormon. Mormon, I got Mormon on the brain.
Yeah, I was like, my name's not Mormon. That would be frightening.
Molly Morgan.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Well, good evening anyway.
Well, good
the hosts
evening.
of this show are immediately regretting bringing my ass on.
No.
Well, you didn't call me Mormon, so that wasn't on you.
There is that, you know. Well, first of all, Tracy, of course, joining us from the not-so-wild New Hampshire.
Maine.
Oh, God. Sorry, I was with somebody from New Hampshire last week. I have to say...
This is going so well.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to 5 minutes yet.
Okay, I have to qualify. This is my 5th hangout in the last 48 hours, so I'm sorry if they sort of run together slightly.
See, not all Americans look the same to me. I can actually tell the difference between you and like her.
And Sam is joining me in the studio. Yes, I can sometimes tell them apart. And I don't know where Riss is right now, but joining us from a studio somewhere is the fabulous Riss or Marissa.
Yeah, I'm joining you from Canada Light. I'm told that's what Minnesota is, and that's where I just moved to. So, greetings from your younger cousin.
Well, I've never been to Minnesota.
Just take what you have, except add electricity and a few less log cabins, and I think that's about it. There's as much hockey, I'm told.
Okay, but do you have as many moose and beaver?
There's plenty of beaver, I can say that. Wait, we're not talking about that.
Can I get a don't you know what?
Don't you know?
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll have to visit Minnesota at some point then because, you know, well, see, you may not know this, but I'm the world's shittiest Canadian. I actually...
No, we knew that.
Well, no, but Riss might not know that. I don't like hockey. I hate winter. I don't like beer. I don't like Tim Hortons coffee. Well, you can like it. It's fine. You can like
I'm going to stop you there. You do realize that you can go other places, right? That'd be like if I showed up in Seattle and I'd be like, fuck, I hate not showering. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, but each time Dad explains this, I'm like, I think I'm an inner Canadian because I love pretty much all of those things.
Right?
Well, if you didn't live in fucking Mississippi, I might decide to switch with you, but no, I'm sorry.
I understand.
Yeah, how is Mississippi still a state? How have you not just burned the whole place down?
I'm trying, but
but by the end of the year, the whole country will be Mississippi.
Yeah, there we go.
So it won't matter then.
I mean, yeah, I know. That's why when it was like Trump became president, I was like, well, things are going to get bad federally, but it might be a while before I see the federal effects because, yeah, it's bad, but we're doing the best we can. We like 5 liberals here.
Well, there's somebody called Lost Reality Radio in the Spreaker chat that says that atheists always have God on the brain. Interesting.
Were we talking about God?
I was like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, when did that come up?
I told you to call me on this episode. It's really specific. Call me Sam.
Not
right?
God. Okay.
Very specific. Okay, God's my
God.
We're not using that anymore. Okay.
Person in the chat that's like projecting their God onto our atheist discussion that has nothing to do with that. You're getting out of hand. Plug, sis.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'll bite my tongue.
As you were saying before the show, Riss, is there anything that you don't do? And you said tennis, so that's true. But you just finished your degree.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Now, is that an undergrad or graduate degree?
That was my undergrad, and it was Penn, not Penn State.
I know. Okay. You call it Penn in the book a lot, and I didn't know there was more than one university in Pennsylvania, which I should, but I didn't. So.
Well, most people don't know. Most people in the state don't know that there's a difference between Penn and Penn State. So I have to be like, the Ivy League one, not the football kids touching, football coaches touching little kids place. So we don't want to be associated with that place either. We actually have shirts that say Penn, not State, since 1740.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Well, I was a little confused when you were referring it to as an Ivy League school, and I'm like, I didn't know Penn State was Ivy League. Well, obviously, I was wrong.
Yeah, that's the one place where I get to be one of the elitists, because I was just one of the redheaded stepchildren that they threw to the poor people, and were like, "Oh, we'll let you in." So, I didn't get to be elitist with the rest of them, except when I was like, Penn's Ivy League, Penn State's upstate school. Do not confuse them. I am not going 5 times more into debt to go to a state school. God damn it.
I'm 2 hours from Penn State, so I know what you're saying. I live in Penn State County. Everything's Penn State.
Oh, I know. I just moved from the Harrisburg area, so I was also 2 hours from Penn State.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, you're the other way.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I just like to say not all being a redheaded stepchild is bad, just from experience. But
I live with a ginger snap. I know these.
Okay. Well, but are they a stepchild?
I can make them one. I can find my ruler.
There you go. So you got your degree, and I like a flash of lightning. You wrote a book in like no time flat, which I'm like, holy shit! and it's a damn good book too. So
well, thank you.
Damn.
I'm disappointed in myself because I wrote that book in 9 days, and to write the other 4, it's taken like longer. So I'm losing time as I write more books. I just don't have that 9-day magic anymore.
Damn, because it's not exactly a small book either. Although you got a lot of cool friends to add some stuff to it too, but still, it's not exactly a small thing. So damn, 9 days.
It's very adequate. It's a good size.
It is. I mean, I got through it in 2 evenings. So, but that was like, I'm sitting out here reading this book. Everyone fuck off and don't bother me till I'm finished,
That's a good attitude to have for a book that begins with the words "fuck you."
Exactly. Which I thought was awesome. I opened it, I'm like, "Fuck you!" I'm like, "All right, this is good."
Yep. It's almost like I wrote it right after we elected the fucking dumbest person in the history of politics. Oh wait.
In the history of politics? How about history of humanity, possibly?
No, I bet dumber than him, but they don't have jobs that actually have power.
Yep. Okay. Oh, look, our friend in the chat is Let's see. Thank you for stating my name live on your chat. Yeah, whatever.
Hey, let's get this straight. I'm the attention whore on this show, God damn it. You don't take that from me. Commenter. I'm not even using your name. Commenter.
Commenter. There we go. And just so you know, the show is actually all about risk today. So it's not like we talk about, God shit all the fucking time. Because they're like, oh, I want to ask a simple and a question and a simple follow-up question. Do you have any independent, verifiable, refutable, demonstrable evidence which you can use to infallibly prove that you live on anything called a planet? Why do I even fucking care?
I was gonna tell you what I'm talking about. Like, stay on top of
Flat Earth thing. It sounds like a
Are you a flat earther commenter?
Is this flat Earth?
Are you
happening here?
Are you?
No, we did a flat Earth episode, and we got flat earthers in the comments, and I was literally like, "What the hell is going on in the world?" It was insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, man, you just got to think about it. Like, we called it a planet, man. We named it. It's you can't imagine something that we named, because if we named it ourselves, it like doesn't exist.
I know. Like,
Yeah, and then I said something about the moon.
It really wouldn't matter whether the planet exists or not. We're still here because you were dumb enough to ask us that question.
Are we, though? Are we really here?
Made up word.
You don't know.
Just a made up word.
now
really.
here's something. If we call it a tennis ball and Riss doesn't do tennis, is Riss really here then?
Nope. Because if
See?
I'm not really here, I'm making out with my hot girlfriend right now. So, yeah, if it's tennis, I got to go.
I'm pretty sure it's a planet, but whatever.
Can your voyeur come or
Sphere.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm saying that stuff, Sam.
Yeah, there we go. By the way, we had kitten earlier. Now we have geriatric cat. This one's 20 years old.
Polar opposites.
Exactly. But anyway, back to risk, because the show really is all about risk.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
yeah, so you wrote the book, like, the first chapter, you're very open, like, hey, I don't give a fuck if you don't like what I'm saying, but this is how I feel right now. Fuck you. And,
That's the whole book, really.
yeah, that's true. But you're a little more marginally more blunt in the first chapter.
Well,
at least
it was like when I was on God Awful Movies and Noah said, like, I was just going to write a book that had the word fuck repeated for 212 pages. I'm like, I wrote that book. You have it.
Yeah, but you said some other fun, good stuff in there too, and you actually taught me a couple of things. So this
Ooh.
yeah, like for instance, I did not know that there was a term called bigender. I had not heard that before. So
that is one of the identities on the gender spectrum within the non-binary, and bigender is someone who has both identities. And that's
Right.
what I thought I was for a little while, because I was still desperately clinging to the idea that, well, if I only go halfway, then I don't have to like fully transition and be vulnerable. And then Pastor Carl came along, and I was like, fuck this bullshit. So, but there are people who are bigender, and it's completely valid.
yeah, I just not heard of it before. So thank you for teaching me that, for sure. Because if you look, I made some notes.
Oh God, I couldn't possibly have said that many relevant things. I think you're tricking me.
The book. She made it all gay. It's perfect. It wasn't gay enough.
That's not possible.
Yeah,
No, she clearly did it. She did it right there. She made it more gay.
Nobody has ever looked at a thing I've done and said, yeah, that could use some more gay, because it can't be more gay if I made it. Seriously.
I don't know.
it is profound though, because I actually finished it this afternoon, because I started it after ReasonCon, and then finals came, and I was like, fine. I'll have to, yeah. So I didn't have time to read. So I picked it back up, and then I finished it today. And I kept saying to my boyfriend, I was like, "You need to listen to this." And I was like reading aloud passages to him, and he's trying to study from a bar exam. So, but I was like, "But this is more important than the bar exam." Yeah, I know you want to be an attorney and all, but listen.
Yeah, we'll get Andrew Torres to help you out on that. You know.
That part was good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in here. A lot of good stuff. One of my favorite parts, and I was sitting on my front porch at 2 o'clock in the morning this morning, and I read the part about the lava lamp gaining sentience and spraying colors all over people for that was awesome. That was great. I have visuals of that. I can.
Best B-movie
As
ever.
intended.
Yeah. Attack of the killer lava lamp. And the tagline: "We really hope you like teal."
I'm laughing at my own jokes because when you write a book in 9 days, you don't like retain any of that shit. So it's like, oh, I did write that. That's great.
I bet you did. But yeah, so Morgan, what stuck out for you? Like, what were you telling him that he should be reading?
Oh, just like, because I go on rants every single day. And so I was like, oh, I'm not alone in the ranting. And I was like, this is, and it was just much more eloquent than my rants, which are usually every other word is fuck and like some, I don't know, like nonsense. So then, I don't know, it was just way more eloquent than I could ever rant. And I was like, you need to fucking listen. This is exactly how I feel. Fuck everybody. But yeah, it was just that. And then, just the personal experiences and that you also brought to it, I thought really made it something really unique too.
Well, you really put a lot of intensely personal stuff in there, and I really commend that. Like, especially the chapter of your internal monologue. That's not something a lot of people give consideration to in other people. Like, we all have one, but no one really says, I wonder what that person's monologue is like. So to throw that down and be like, here is a window into my brain, read it and learn something.
It's interesting that you bring that up because my next book is literally all internal monologue. I'm taking that idea and I'm fine because after I wrote this book, Andrew Torres said I needed to write an autobiography. And I'm like, I don't know if I could write a traditional one. I don't feel like I have enough stories yet. And then he did what I call compliment sniping, which is where he tells me that I need to do a thing and then goes away before I can disagree with him because that's Andrew.
That is Andrew.
But I got the idea to, especially because of the response that I get to my internal monologue pieces, to sort of go to different points in my life non-sequentially, reflecting on them now with what I was thinking at the time, and sort of retrospectively analyze them. Like, oh, I kind of see why I was acting this way now because I was autistic and not getting treated, or because I was in denial about my gender identity but didn't have the words to express it. So I already wrote the first chapter, and the response I got from the person I always send my work to was, keep writing this. So I think that's a good sign. That's
good. That is excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's just not something that you think of as a lot of us probably put ourselves down a bit, like, well, why would anybody care what's going on in my head? But I think it's important because then we can, not only can we learn from each other, but we can also, hey, that person thought that too. Damn, I'm not a freak. I'm not the only one on the planet that had that thought. And yeah, I think it's so important to share those things, and it's such a tough thing to put yourself out to that degree, I think.
And there's a reason I do that, and that is because as far as openly transgender people are, I am among the most privileged. Not necessarily in the socioeconomic sense, but in the support sense. Right. I am so lucky to have literally thousands of people who validate my identity every day. And I don't take that for granted. But I still see how much ignorance there is out there about us, and how, you know, these stupid cliches that we get, same questions we have to answer every day. But I figure if I can get out there and explain what cis means for the 6th time that day, then another trans person doesn't have to. If I get out there and put myself out there and sort of lay on the tracks for the kids in the future, then they don't have to answer the same questions that we do all the time. And I'd rather answer that and protect them than have someone who's not secure in their identity, or someone who hasn't even come out to their parents yet, or, you know, something like that. Because there are so many kids out there who don't have one person validating their identity, or they're in danger of losing their job, or they might lose their home, or they might lose their parents. Me, if someone calls me a slur, I just screenshot it and put it on Facebook, and there's like 100 people within 5 minutes with pitchforks going, "Give me a name." So
I can attest. I've seen it happen.
In fact, it just happened the other day, didn't it? Like yesterday.
It happens almost every day.
Well, I think it's important too, Riss, and this is what I appreciate about, because my contact is with you and with Kelly Wright, is that lesbian, it's like, I'm like as far as trans and trans issues, and I'm still learning, and I appreciate the fact that you and Kelly and everybody, you know, are willing to be out there so lady can learn stuff.
And for the most part, you know, stuff like that has been universally positive for the most part. There are plenty of people, yourself included, who I've gotten into contact with who are like, look, I don't want to be ignorant. I don't want to, you know, say the wrong thing, but I'm confused about this. Can you tell me?
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things for me, is because, like, I got into, well, I'm actually kind of still into it. I have to finish the piece, but I got into a, quote, debate with some nut job fucktard, and I knew what she was saying was wrong, but I didn't have the knowledge to dispute it. And the piece I'm working on now for one of my Twat Waffle episodes is she gets into the whole, people don't like the word cunt, so... But it's like, she gets into the whole anti-transgender bullshit, and it's like, I'm not strong, and I admit it even in my piece that I'm not strong enough to completely, but I'm working on it. And it's because of your openness, it's because of Kelly's openness, and the other people that I deal with online, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. That's you know, Callie's a close friend of mine now, and that's what we both try to do. We both try to, you know, put voices out there that counter the ignorance, that counter the misinformation that surrounds us. Because, you know, even for someone like me, I didn't know trans was a thing until I was older, and if I did, I probably would have transitioned years ago. But the one thing that I inevitably always say when someone is arguing against our right to exist, our right to be in public, or our right to be treated equally, it comes down to the fact that they believe that they have more of a right to my identity than I do. And I don't care if it's a mental illness. I don't care if it's a disorder. It's neither. I don't care if it's a trend that started on Tumblr. It's not. None of those reasons are reasons to treat me like shit.
Yeah.
Especially the mental illness one, because when you say trans is a mental illness and therefore that's why you're subhuman, you're being shitty for multiple reasons. You're saying, I treat people who are different like shit, and I treat the mentally disabled like shit. So you're an asshole on multiple fronts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the argument I use, because I have bipolar. And I actually had one commenter on my blog try to say, well, it's no wonder you're all fucked up mentally, or so. And it's like, seriously, it's like, if I was as bad as you think I was, I wouldn't be writing a blog.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you ableist piece of shit, get a fucking life and go meet people. Maybe you'll actually find out that these things exist everywhere outside of your little Alex Jones bubble, you fucking idiot.
Yeah. Well, I had that at one of my jobs. I ended up one of the factories I worked in, and after about a year and a half, the girl came up and apologized and thanked her. Mom and stepmom were friends of mine, but she kind of pulled away from her mom because her mom came out as gay, and just realized that you're no different than anybody else. And I said, honey, the only difference between me and you is who we fuck. I said, that's it. I said, I do the exact same things you do, and vice versa. She goes, yeah, well, it took me 2 years to realize it. And that's why I think it's important, whether you're gay, straight, trans, whatever, that, have a mental illness, don't have a mental illness, whatever your, I'll say, ailment, for lack of a better word, is you're open and honest about it if you can be, safely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, like I said, even if it was a mental illness, that doesn't make it invalid. It doesn't mean we don't deserve our right to equality. It doesn't mean that what we have is wrong.
Yeah. Well, and it always seems to be this sort of, well, it's a mental illness, therefore you should never, quote, condone transitioning, or like, who the fuck are you to say that's, do you have a psychology, or are you a psychiatrist? Are you a doctor? Like, what the fuck?
The last person who tried that on me, I screenshotted this because it was so great to see someone that ignorant. But I said, okay, so you're telling me that at my Ivy League school with Ivy League doctors and Ivy League psychiatrists, Ivy League psychologists, Ivy League gender therapists, all of that I had to go through just to get the appointment to get hormones. You're saying you know better than me and all those people. Yeah. Yeah. And
they Googled it.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually the sentence I used at the time was, I had to do that just to get into my PCP. And they were like, oh, you use PCP? You're a drug addict. It's like, are you really that fucking stupid?
Wow.
I don't have time to sit there and explain what acronyms mean, okay?
That's what
the thing is, and it wasn't, they knew what it was. It's the same arguments I run into in the anti-vax community and anti-science community, is when they don't have a consistent logical response to your response, they throw shit like that out because they don't know how to respond, because they know they just got burned.
Yeah.
Well, I confess to some degree of ignorance on these topics as well, but I know that, like, within the deaf community, there's a lot of sensitivity to deafness being considered disorder or anything like that. But at the same time, if it's no longer considered a disorder, then insurance doesn't cover of all kinds of things, or they're not covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the accommodations that they need to function at a high level in public, they wouldn't get that. So there's kind of that balance, like, no, I'm not broken and defective, but I do need these certain accommodations. So I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts around that balance between, oh my God, trans people are mentally ill, and also the need for insurance to cover if somebody wants to medically transition. There's got to be something that says it's medically necessary in order for insurance to pay for it. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I was fortunate enough to go to a university whose student healthcare was trans inclusive, and everything that I've needed has been considered medically necessary because I am a girl and I don't, my body didn't correlate with that. And I know better than some idiot on the internet who, heard one Alex Jones rant and he thinks he's pretty sure he got it down. So when I first went there, I had to do my research first, but they were like, oh, so you know the effects of hormones, you know what's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah. And they said, okay, here's a prescription. Come back in 30 days. We'll do a blood test. It's like anything else. So
Yeah.
For trans people, it is the difference between life and death, not just, you know, in the sense of we don't like what we see in the mirror, but suicide rates are so high among trans people that there's so many who don't have the economic benefits of being able to go to you know, a hospital like I did and get that treatment. I also fortunately got in with the Mayo Clinic for my physical surgery transition, and that once again is an area of privilege that so many trans people who may not have access to healthcare at all, or don't have a place to live, or don't have a job, that they don't have. So if I wasn't using that kind of privilege and platform to try to fight to normalize this so that they don't have to deal with it anymore, I think I'd be a pretty big fucking hypocrite. So what it comes down to is whether it's a disorder or not, it's not. But even if it was, that does not mean that we should be kept from the medical information necessary that we have access to that affirms who we are. And the fact that we can do that, the fact that we have hormone replacement therapy, the fact that we have these physical transitions, the fact that it's backed up by psychiatrists and doctors all over the world, to which people are ignorant, it's there and it's available, and it should be available, because at the end of the day, we're just fucking people and we deserve the right to healthcare like anybody else.
Yeah. And you know, at one point that always drives me batty when idiots bring this up is they say, oh, I guess there was some study came out in the last couple of years that said, well, you know, the suicide rate post-transition is really high. And I'm like, okay, that's so like that. It's as if they're trying to say, well, we shouldn't let people transition because it doesn't affect the suicide rate or it gets worse or whatever. It's like, you obviously have no concept of how incredibly varied, you know, and nuanced suicide is. Like, you know, there's never the same reason that any two people consider that. Yeah. So that one drives me nuts.
And you just read my book, so you know, like, Pastor Carl was on our campus to say that Penn had a suicide problem because we accepted the trans. And it's like, maybe it's more like we have a suicide problem because people like you are fucking harassing children and calling people slurs and, you know, using a megaphone on campus on kids that just want to get through the day without being told that they're a whore for having an exposed shoulder, or being told that they're a faggot because they look queer. And that's the moment that I started, you know, trolling him and protesting against him, because I'm 31. Nothing this guy said could possibly affect me. But I could see these were 17-year-old kids that he was yelling at and harassing.
And it's like, a lot of them probably grew up hearing that from other family, like, even if the family members didn't know, you know, but they may have heard that their whole life and internalized that. And then, you know, just day in and day out, you know, you think, oh, I'm away from that, I'm going to school. And then there's some fucktard on the sidewalk with a megaphone saying the same shit over and over. Like, I can't even imagine.
The other problem too is that when they pull out any stat on trans people and try to say, oh, the biggest, you know, 99% of trans people exist on the internet only and aren't out at all and haven't started anything at all, haven't touched hormone or anything.
And do you think that might have to do with how easy it is to, like, protest against us and say shitty things in public and all of that, and the fact that the panic defense is still a thing? Do you think maybe that might be part of the reason that they're not coming out of the closet?
Well, and it's also so unbelievably disingenuous for somebody to argue that, oh, well, the suicide rate, you know, doesn't go down after transition. Like, you fucking care about the suicide rate. Like, that's not what you're not arguing that statistic because you care about the mental health and the well-being of those people and whether or not they commit suicide. If you're going to haul out that statistic, it's not because that's what you care about. It's because you're trying to shoot down the whole idea of, you know, the validity of being trans in the first place. So that's another thing about that argument that just really irritates me, because it's so disingenuous.
And they're literally using children, like, who kill themselves to make a shitty ass point.
Yep.
Like, go
Well,
fuck yourself with that.
It's the same thing, and this is why I harp about like Kevin Swanson and Steven Anderson and Gordon Klingenschmidt all the time, and why I try to battle it from the point of view I do, is that if they really honestly cared, then they'd actually do something about it. And like Tracy said, they're not arguing the statistic; they're using it as to further their own cause.
Yeah.
There is some overlap. It's the same thing within the trans community. If you were concerned about the suicide rate, maybe you might want to stop your hatred and bigotry and do something positive for a change.
Yeah. You might have seen this. There was a recent example that I memed the hell out of, because there was a viral comment going around where a guy named Andrew Jackson, and the fact that he's synonymous with a genocidal maniac notwithstanding, he essentially wrote that if he ever found out that his date was trans, he'd beat the shit out of him. He's glad they get murdered and hopes it happens more. And my response was, hey, why don't you try that to me? I'm the size of an NFL linebacker, and I've been trained to be in self-defense in katana, and I'm a former professional wrestler. Try to beat the shit out of me, you fragile masculinity fuck. And I got criticized because, well, how do you expect to maintain any allies when you're so hostile? He has his right to his freedom of speech. He has the right to his opinion. And I'm like, his opinion is that I deserve to be murdered, and you're calling me out on being shitty?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You would scroll past, you would scroll past him saying X group of people deserve to be murdered, and you're cool with that. Hey, everybody has their own opinion. But me going, hey, could you maybe not do that? That's where you draw the line? Fuck you.
Well, I mean, that's the same
seen...
thing. People who use the free speech argument do not give a shit about free speech.
They give a shit about their free speech.
People who use the free speech argument use it in defense of bigotry and bullshit and bad ideas. Because the same people who are out there saying, no, let's listen to Richard Spencer. No, let's listen to the Nazis, are the same ones saying, you know, those radical imams who are preaching hate, they ought to be deported.
Yeah.
You know, they're the same fucking people. So they don't care about free speech. Not to mention the fact that nobody said that guy couldn't say what he said. He said what he said, and then you told him to fuck off. So that's your free speech.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's in response to bigotry, it's intolerance.
Yeah.
So much for the tolerant left.
Yeah. That person that I went back and forth with said, well, I can see you're already so intolerant of other people's opinions. And once again, it's like me being intolerant of someone wishing murder upon me. You can't pull the intolerance card on that one, because this guy is just saying we deserve fucking murder. There's no high ground to take there. There's no, oh, well, let's see if he's serious. Maybe I should sit down and have a rational conversation with him and find out if he means it. No, when you take the side of murdering people, you deserve to be called out on your bullshit, and you do not deserve a chance to be heard out. Fuck you. You are advocating for killing people.
Yeah.
And then they...
Go ahead, Morgan.
I was going to say, they also defend their ideas with, you know, this whole, oh, it's free speech, as if it's... And as a law student, I'll say this. There are many things that are legal, but you probably shouldn't do. And there's this idea that, oh, well, you can't call me out for being an asshole because you're infringing on my free speech. That's not what the fuck that even means.
No.
Like, it drives me nuts.
You can say things
that you will not be arrested, jailed, or tortured, or whatever by the state.
By the state, yes, and that's the important part. This is government or state or regional or local level, that they will not impinge on your right to free speech. A person can speak freely. That doesn't mean they cannot suffer the consequences of that speech. And I go back to the whole Duck Dynasty fiasco with A&E television. Phil Robertson can say whatever he wants as a private citizen. A&E as the company can do what they feel is necessary. He signed a contract at the time that had a personal action type clause in it that said, you do something against the company, we're going to suspend you or fire your ass. That's free. They have a right to do that. So if you say something asinine, I have the right to counter that argument. I don't have to give you a platform to say it. If I don't like what you say, I'm not going to go listen to you speak. I ain't going to let you do a guest post on my blog. I'm not required to do that. And so, before I forget, something that Riz said, that have you any of you seen Priscilla, Queen of the Jungle?
Desert. Really close.
A long time ago.
Okay, there was a piece in there where the older, I can't remember the character's name, while they were traveling, the younger one gets herself in trouble and defends her and basically beats the shit out of these 3 bar bumpkins. And that's what Rich reminded me of, was that scene in there. That, and it's also in the one with Patrick Swayze. Oh, what the hell is Tu Wong Fu?
Tu Wong Fu with Julie Newmar.
Yeah. It's like,
poor Patrick.
Yeah, just because you are in the process or already have transitioned, you're not going to lose that part of you. I mean, that's who you are. That's why I laugh when people say, "Oh, you're just gay because you're a tomboy." And I'm like, I've been a tomboy my entire life, and I was gay. I knew I was gay when I was 5. I said, I'm just me.
If I could summarize
it's like,
it with
I've been playing it.
If I could summarize it with a tweet I wrote today,
yes.
Everyone has a right to be completely full of shit, but they are not exempt from being alerted of their status.
Yes, there you go. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it pisses me the fuck off when these people of theists or just bigots or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, if I can't be an asshole to who I want to be an asshole for, then I'm being persecuted. I'm like, are you fucking insane?
Yes, they are being persecuted.
Yeah, these arguments always come down to, I can't bully people without consequence anymore. And whatever bullshit phrase I use for that, people are too PC, these SJWs are out of control. Anything that they say comes down to, I'm not allowed to say a colloquial shitty word that I used to use, or when I do, people don't just sit there and take it anymore. And that's the same as oppression. No, it's not. Why don't you fight for the right to say things that are more critical of people in power, rather than being upset that you can't kick a marginalized community anymore without getting repercussion for it?
Yeah.
And as far as people complaining about LGBT rights and such, Beth and I have been saying for ages that if you really boil it down, and it doesn't matter what their initial argument is, if you really boil it down, the common denominator is always what we call the ick factor. I think it's icky, therefore I'm going to come up with any and all reason why I'm going to dictate why other people can't do that. And
you know what I find icky? Swimming in the ocean, because something might touch my foot and I would jump so fucking high that I'd probably burn my hair off in the ozone layer. But you know what I'm not doing? Saying no one's allowed to swim in the ocean because it makes me feel icky. It's really that simple. Just because you don't get it doesn't mean nobody's allowed to do it.
Yeah,
they'll like that, or they are scared of their own feelings because of internalized homophobia and transphobia and biphobia. And, if I outlaw it, then I don't have to think about it.
You can't catch me, gay thoughts.
Yeah. What you said about the ocean, though, I've only been to the Pacific Ocean, or sorry, the Atlantic Ocean once, and that was in 1982. But I was a little kid and I refused. This was like a big beach in Prince Edward Island. And I refused to go anywhere near the fucking water because there was seaweed all over the shore. And I was like, I ain't touching no seaweed, ew. So totally get that.
Yeah, I ain't going on anything where my feet might touch something that's scaly and slimy. Nope, no.
That's why.
It just has always. Sorry, Deb.
That's okay. Go ahead.
It's just always struck me as just such a strange thing for people to care about and to get so animated about and put so much energy into, you know, like with lobbying and public relations and people who just like invest their whole entire lives trying to tell people why they shouldn't be gay or bi or trans or like. How about investing that energy into addressing like people who shoot people, or people who molest children, or men who beat their wives? You know, like what? It's just it's so nonsensical and arbitrary and illogical to spend so much time thinking about something that is just none of your fucking business, has nothing to do with you, and it will never affect you in any way, shape, or form. So why, if you're gonna like devote your life to that kind of what you see as a public service, how about actually doing a public service? It's so bizarre.
Well, it comes down to, and you all have heard me say it before, it comes down to basically being able to control and manipulate the masses because of the authority of the Bible. And with these theocrats and dominionists, you have to understand they lose that control, they're nothing. But they are actively seeking, by some of the policies we see coming out now, they are actively seeking, trying to bring on the Armageddon, the second coming of Christ. Their whole religious ideology is around going to heaven. They don't give a shit about anybody else. Yeah. And for you throw in somebody like the Koch brothers, although they're not necessarily theocrats in a pure sense of the word, well, Donald Trump's a perfect example. He is not a theocrat. He is a tyrant. He just wants more and more power. And it's just like, I think it was Photo I was talking to about it, and it's just like, why would somebody like Koch brothers need more money? Because they're addicted to money, and that's what it comes down to. They see it as a means of control, and if they lose on the creationism, I mean, I've highlighted Ken Ham's statement thousands of times, but in general, it comes down to if they lose that control, they lose that authority, they have nothing to manipulate us with. I just find it bizarre. Go ahead, Marissa.
Sam, there's apparently someone shitty in the chat. Could you read aloud what they said to me? Because I've been waiting for an asshole to tear apart.
Okay, well, it's the same mentor, by the way.
Scroll up.
It's the same person?
Ask the Holocaust.
Same person. Yeah, same person.
Yeah, right there.
Which one?
Top comment right there.
Oh, yeah. If I found out if my date was trans, I'd be pretty upset. I like my women double X chromosome. Oh, for fuck's sake.
How the fuck does he know? Does he have a genetic tester that he carries around with him? Like, does he test all of his dates like fucking chromosomes? Like, what the hell?
Well, how about this? If I found out that my date was a transphobe, I'd be really upset because I like my men to not be fucking flaming asshole dickheads. How about that?
Rissa's turn.
Crack him, Marissa.
Listen to me, you unmasculine, fragile little boy. The fact that you are so insecure about yourself that it means that if your date might be trans, that you have to resort to violence and you have to use some kind of chromosomal excuse as if you have any idea what the fuck that means. No trans person would ever fuck you anyway, because we actually have standards. And you know what? I'm more of a woman than you've ever been with. And it doesn't matter what I have in my pants, because I'm going to read your comment on the air, and 1,000 people are going to hear it and laugh at your tiny, tiny penis. So next time you feel like you want to say something to a trans person, you maybe shouldn't pick the one who has a reputation for ripping shitty people like you apart, and try it a little nicer next time, because I have no obligation to be nice to you or to conform to your little fragile masculinity. Go fuck yourself, because that's the only one who's going to be interested in touching your tiny little dick, you motherfucker.
Woo!
She even dragged him to hell, and it's not even real.
That was awesome.
Awesome.
They call me Rissy Monster for a reason. Go fuck yourself, commenter.
I've been ignoring them because they've just been saying stupid things, but yeah.
Is this in Spreaker or on the YouTube?
Yeah, no, this is in Spreaker.
I said the YouTube like an old person, sorry.
Yeah, we get the weirdos on YouTube, not the Spreaker side, but I guess today's special.
Mask so fragile.
That always boggles my mind. It's like, how does what anybody have in their fucking pants or do in their fucking bedroom have anything to do with anything else, unless you are the one that actively wants to sleep with them? Like, that's the only time it ever makes a fucking difference. Like, I'm a people watcher. I like watching people. I find what people do fascinating. I don't sit, if I'm out in public and go, God, I wonder what that guy fucks like. Like, no, I don't. I look at what they're doing, and I might, find how they interact in public interesting, but I don't sit there and go, oh wow, I wonder if they actually have what they're supposed to have in their, like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, and this whole idea comes from this shitty fear that people have that something different exists. And
Yeah.
if we can't outright ban it, we have to ban it from public space at least, so that Todd's fragile masculinity doesn't get called into question, because he might be attracted to a girl who was born male, and that would make him question his sexuality. So instead of actually confronting it or dealing with it like an adult, he has to say that we deserve to have the shit beaten out of us or reduce us to our chromosome pairs, something that literally nobody gets tested unless they have a reason for it. So I realized that he probably got a C in 8th grade biology, and that's pretty much the same thing as actually knowing something. But until you have the spot where you can actually confront it and say, hey, that's not my thing, without being a self-righteous douchebag, I feel no reason to give you any credence whatsoever.
Yeah. And that's not so hard. Like, I'm a cis straight white chick, and I've been hit on by lesbians before, and it's really easy to say, hey, thanks for the compliment, but I'm sorry, I'm straight.
Yeah.
Like, how hard is that? I don't get it. Oh, they're by the way, they're kind of having a conniption because they said they didn't say anything about violence, but whatever.
They said they agreed with the guy who advocated violence. I don't care if you didn't say it yourself. It doesn't matter. You're being shitty, and you're agreeing with shitty people, and you're resorting to arguments that people like me get to hear 5 times a day. So if you're really that fragile, go find someone else to troll, because I am an Ivy League educated trans girl, and I will use every bit of that intellectual capacity to rip you to shreds every fucking time. Go home, Todd. Find someone who gives a shit.
Oh, and now they're saying, oh, but you didn't see where I said that homosexuals, pans, trans are always the most friendly people I've ever met, lovable, sweet, blah, 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 blah.
Until you have to date one.
Yeah, apparently.
And I'm under no obligation to be nice to you. Just saying.
Yeah.
I get more pussy than you do, so it's all good.
They're all like, I'm friends with a pansexual. Oh, well,
I'm not racist. I have a black friend.
No, and I bet that, and as a bisexual, I'm pretty sure that pansexual, since we are similar, that pansexual probably actually hates them, and they just think that they're their friend. It's probably like a guy at work that's like, oh my God, it's fucking Todd, but you can't like run away from him or else it's awkward. Yeah, I've been there.
Here's something that's not even a trans thing. Here's thing just dealing with a marginalized community or a minority in general. If someone in that community calls you out for saying something shitty, you don't get to say that you didn't. It doesn't work like that. You said something shitty, own up to it, learn from it, or continue being a self-righteous douchebag on the internet and go back to your little Facebook group where somebody might give a shit, because I'm not fucking interested in hearing your excuses. Yep. You could have just said, that was a shitty thing, I'm sorry, but instead you have to protect your own ego because you might have been wrong and a transgender woman might have called you out on it. So go fuck yourself. I maintain that. I don't care if you find me unnice. I'm not obligated to live up to your standards.
Exactly. I think we're done with that person for now.
Yeah. Bye, Todd. Go give your fragile masculinity to somebody else.
Yeah, person, whatever.
I like how you named them. That's great.
I know, and I just went with it. I was like, it's Todd now. That's his name.
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry to any non-asshole Todds that might be listening.
Hashtag just no Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
there's some
all
guy named
Todds.
Todd.
Not all Todds.
There's some guy named Todd being like, what the fuck did I do?
I've known some Todds, okay? Actually, not all Todds. I've known some Todds. If you could just listen to all the facts, actually.
Oh my god.
I'd be really upset if I went on a date and I found out his name was Todd.
Yeah, me too. I get that they have the right to have the name Todd or even change it to the name Todd, but it's just really not my thing. I'm not attracted to people named Todd, so therefore they don't have the right to exist in public space. That's a completely logical jump to make.
I'm cool with other people's kids being Todds, but my kid would never be a Todd. That they know better.
Yeah, I'll throw my kid out of the house if they decide their name's Todd.
Yeah. And if they ever bring a Todd home, oh boy.
all I can think of is Todd Starnes at the moment.
Oh, fuck. So, another part that you kind of rant about in the book, Riss, that I agree with you 100%, and it drives me crazy, is those goddamn fucking chain memes and chain fucking Facebook posts, and I know who's gonna forward this, and I'll understand. Oh!
The copy and paste guilt trip.
Yes. Fucking hell. I'm like, the minute I see, I kind of, if I see a big paragraph, I'll check at the end for, please copy, nope. Bye. Forget it.
Like this if you cry every time. But those drive me up the wall, especially because like my mom died of cancer, so it's like, especially the cancer ones, I definitely related to it because I'll see friends all the time. I'll be like, oh, repost this, or you don't give a shit about people who die of cancer, and I'm like, fuck you, asshole. Like, wait.
I bet 97% of the people on my list won't share this status.
And I'm like, yes, you're right, because it's
There's a
annoying as
reason
fuck.
for that.
What's that?
I said there's a reason for that.
What's
Because
that?
97% of the people on your feed think it's stupid fucking bullshit. That's why they're not going to do it.
Exactly.
It gives you the false feeling that you actually contributed something, and that's the same. It's cool to spread a meme, or it's cool to raise awareness on Facebook, but it's not a substitute for actually doing something, and you get an undeserved sense of accomplishment, like, oh, I shared a thing with cancer in it. That's the same as like helping people with cancer, right? No, it's not. It's literally the least you can do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and even if that's all you're going to do is post something on Facebook, just write something on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of copying and pasting, just saying, something came across my feed and it made me feel really sad, and I knew somebody who passed away from cancer, and all of you who are affected by cancer, I'm thinking about you. It's just just write it yourself. You could write something that was authentic, that was just as useless in terms of actually doing anything, but at least it would be authentic. That would take about the same amount of time as copying and pasting. It's just obnoxious. And I think the worst ones are the ones where they actually send you a private message.
Oh, I hate that.
That's worse, because it's like somebody inviting you over to their house for dinner, and then they try to sell you Amway.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they like the ones where there's some weird ambiguous post, and if you even like it or do a what the fuck or something, and now you have to do. I'm like, no, the fuck I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, I've never done that. I'm like, no, I don't. Goodbye. You haven't spoken
Yeah,
to me since
if you
6th grade.
if you want chain emails to end, just send them my way, because I ignore them. They drive me insane.
Oh, you got tagged in the ice bucket challenge. That means you have to. No, I don't.
No, exactly.
I literally do not have to do that. Oh, you have? Nope.
No.
97% of the people listening to this episode won't share the fact that 4 out of 8 people named Todd have at one point been accused of being Todd. Will you care about them? Most people don't. 97% of the people listening to this show don't. But will you be one of the special ones? If I don't see your name, I'll understand.
Oh, shit.
Oh, and I love that passive aggressive bit they do. Like if I don't see your name, I understand. And I'm like, bitch, do not out passive aggressive me. I am Southern.
Oh man, I should introduce you to my mother-in-law sometime. She should have been Southern.
Bless her heart.
What I find so annoying about those things is that, to me, it's comparable of saying that I will pray for you.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't work either.
No.
Yeah, there's a bit about that in the book, actually.
That's the whole sentient lava lamp thing.
I don't mind, like, for people that I know, if they say you're in my prayers, if I'm going through a hard time, if they know me, and I think some people just don't have the vocabulary to express that kind of a sentiment in other terms. They just don't have the vocabulary to say, I'm thinking about you and I hope that everything works out because I care. But when it's like a stranger on the internet who's like, oh, you don't conform to my worldview, so I better pray for you.
Yeah.
When it's not genuine, then you can kiss my ass.
It's literally synonymous
Dawkins
with the phrase, I'm a better person than you, and this is just reminding you of that.
Yes, exactly. Because I have the right God and I have the right religion, and so if I pray for you, then I'm just doing so much better. Than I love.
Is that what people mean when they say concern trolling?
Maybe.
Like, I'll pray for you. Like, I've seen that phrase, concern trolling, and I'm not quite sure what it means when somebody says, oh my God, you're a horrible, evil demon woman from hell, I'll pray for you. Or, oh my God, you're a wicked, you're a total bitch. I really hope that you get help so that you're not so bitter all the time. Like, is that what that means? Concern trolling?
Mm-hmm.
Is that's what it is?
Yes, or like when somebody posts a selfie or something and say they don't conform to modern beauty standards, like say they're not, supermodel thin, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm worried about your health."
Yeah.
And they'll say that, and it's like, no, you're just trying to shame somebody's body. Like, I hate that shit because it's like skinny people are healthy all the time. Like, you don't go posting around on smokers' pages and say, "Oh, quit smoking. I'm so worried about your health."
I loved Ricky Gervais's response to the whole thoughts and prayers thing. He's like, "Well, don't I feel like an asshole? I just me."
My favorite is from a comedian named Anthony Jeselnik, and he said it specifically in the phrase thoughts and prayers in regard to like some kind of tragedy or anything, and he's like, when you post my thoughts and prayers are with X, what you're really saying is, hey, I know this terrible thing happened, but don't forget about me.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, it's like when, and I've told this before, right, not too long after my first stroke, it got to be Thanksgiving time, and a friend, for lack of a better word, said, "Oh, you have a lot to be thankful for." And I'm like, I do? I can't put my pants on. Putting my socks on takes me 35 minutes. I got it down to 20 now. I can't pull my pants up, and going to the bathroom. Yeah, I have a lot to be thankful. Oh, my brain doesn't work right. I can't talk. Yeah, I have a lot to be thankful for. You guys have got lousy fucking aim. Yeah. And it's just like, and I said this to her, and I'm like, what do you think I have to be thankful for? I haven't been able to work for 3.5 months. I can barely talk, barely walk. I said, I'm not thankful for any of that. I know people in worse off shape than me that can't even get the proper help. And we should be thankful for what? that kind
that
of
doesn't
suffering.
invalidate you. It's like that thing that people will say to, maybe they'll say, oh, well, it could be worse for you as a queer atheist feminist because if you were in Saudi Arabia, they'd chop your head off, so you have no right to complain about, you live the experiences you experience as an American. And I'm like, ever since when did we get into these Olympics about who has it worse, and only
Right.
the people who have the absolute worst, most shitty life have the ability to complain? And even then, people would probably say, oh, well, you probably have something to be thankful for.
Well, right, and
Yeah,
it's like,
and that's what it came down to.
That's the fallacy of relative privation. Okay, that's a logical fallacy. Once upon a time, the skeptical community used to care about committing fallacies. Okay, so that's a fucking fallacy for one thing. And second of all, is that where the bar is? Like, they're not chopping your head off, so. Oh, whoa,
Yeah.
okay, so we live in the wealthiest nation in the world, or one of them, if we, in the West, but they're not chopping women's heads off or caning women in public for fornication if they get raped. So, then you're lucky you were just raped and not raped and flogged.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, woohoo! Lucky me.
If I can do another little bit of a translation here, what that phrase really means is, you're making me uncomfortable and I really don't want to change my worldview. So if we could just stop this conversation so I can go back to my little bubble without having to change, that'd be great, okay?
Yep. Exactly.
That sums it up very well.
And it all again goes back to the ew, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Ew, and that I have to stop that somehow. Like, learn to be fucking uncomfortable, people. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I'm literally uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah, go ahead, Riz.
I have a show coming out this Friday for Inciting Incident, and it was literally me sitting down with two of my friends who are having a very public debate and saying, okay, let's go to our separate corners and talk about what we like about each other. So I interviewed Dan Errol and Matthew O'Neill, who have had a very public argument for the last couple of months, and it's been very heated. But the one thing both of them said was that when I am uncomfortable by what someone from a marginalized community is saying, that means I need to listen more, not less. So those are some smart people, and I think they got something there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good thing to be aware of, for sure. And so, and I get that it's kind of a visceral reaction, but we need to learn how to move ourselves beyond that, because that's why we have the ability to reason, is that we don't just that we're not just reactionary creatures, right? We can feel it, but we can be like, okay, that feeling's not necessarily appropriate right now, and I need to do something else, or I need to look at this situation differently. And I mean, I do that when I can. I try to be very conscious of that, and there are lots of times where I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with how I feel, but I'm recognizing that my feelings at this juncture are not they're not appropriate for this situation. So while my feelings might be valid, doing something about those feelings is not necessary. And that's my own shit that I need to deal with on my own elsewhere. I
read a really interesting post the other day. A friend of mine had put up that said more or less that, it was somebody who had sort of beaten herself up about how, like, sometimes I see a woman's, wearing something that doesn't fit well or isn't flattering, and the first thought that goes through my head is, oh my God, doesn't she own a mirror? But then I think, oh my, that's terrible. You're supposed to be body positive. She feels good about herself. You're supposed to encourage her and be like, you go, girl. So I feel like I'm a really bad person. And the person who responded to her said, the first thought that goes through your head is how you were raised. And then the second thought that goes through your head is who you are now. So it's okay if you have that initial first thought. It's how you express that outwardly to treat other people, how you make them feel. So, you don't have to beat yourself up for that initial thought where you're thinking, oh my God, what was she thinking when she put that on this morning? It's the not saying any, not being a dick to her, or, telling her she looks nice, or just, it's like, it's okay to, because none of us is ever going to be able to control all of those things, those thoughts that we have that we know are unkind or uncharitable. But as long as we're not acting on all of them, then that's okay. It's more important how we treat other people.
There's a great book that I always recommend, besides all mine, just saying. But there's a book by Dr. Jonathan Haidt, who is also a Penn alum. But he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Religion and Politics. And if I could just summarize one of the ideas in it, because it's way beyond my ability to explain, but it comes down to the fact that we evolved as a social species. And it was a very tribalist mindset in order to survive, because the people who banded together and worked together were more likely to survive than the loners. So it's an evolutionary instinct to find people that we have things in common with and fear the ones that we don't. So when you have an emotional, visceral reaction to something, the key is to not jump on it, kind of like what you were saying, but also take a step back and ask yourself, why is this upsetting me? You have to get, once you get to that second level of reasoning, you can have a reasonable conversation, a rational conversation. But that initial reaction is not rational most of the time. So understanding why you feel a thing or a way about something or somebody, if you can learn to do that, it gives you a much better way to have a rational discussion, to debate, to argue, because chances are, if there's something that really gets to you, it was something you were either raised with or something you haven't had to confront. And then when you get to that second level of reasoning, you can learn something. And I've seen this myself, because I cannot tell you how many people, I'm the first trans person they've ever met. And unless you're going to go on like a public chat and say shitty things, I'm probably going to be very nice and understanding about it, because I know the limited representation we have. I know our stories are not commonly known. And that's why I say mine so openly, because I have the ability to do so, and I have the privilege to do so without putting myself in the same kind of danger that unfortunately a lot of trans people do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's I think a lot of issue that comes out with people that say dumbass shit all the time. They're giving into that reactionary, that visceral reaction, and they're not engaging their bloody ability to reason. And if they do, it's after it's too late, and then they spend all their time trying to justify the stupidity that they did in the first place. And we're so much better than that. Like I said, your feelings are not invalid. It's how you deal with those feelings that can become invalid or inappropriate. And there's nothing that says you can't feel a certain way, but it's how you deal with that in terms of your fellow humans that turns you into a dickwad Todd.
Yeah, you don't have to be attracted to everybody. You don't have to like everybody. The difference is you don't go about saying shitty things to them, or trying to make them as a lesser or an other. It might not be your thing, and I get that. But when you choose the method of aggression, or you choose the method of you're not really a valid woman because X, that's where we have the problems. You could have just said, hey, it's not something I'm attracted to. And most of the time we'll just go, okay, so I'm not going to fuck you. Who cares? Like, it's the only time that I get really emotional and verbose like that is when someone opens the door by being an asshole up front. And then I'm not obligated to be nice to you. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Well, you mentioned something that's important, and it's actually built into the ideology of the Reich, and that's us versus them.
Yeah.
If you track back, I mean, Diane Benscotter mentioned it in one of her TED Talks. And cults are notorious for that, where they implant that idea of an always an us versus them, where it should be all inclusive. It shouldn't matter who you fuck in bed. It shouldn't matter where you stand in society. I mean, it's like we were talking. This was a while ago. We were talking about Christian Sharia law, and here comes my kitty. I'd be screwed on 4 or 5 different levels. I'm gay. I'm gay. I'm an atheist. I have a mental illness. On top of the fact that I'm a woman. Oh, and I can buy a gun now in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's like what? Here's Kitty. She's getting bigger. For people that
tiny
saw her
kitten.
last week. She's so much bigger than my hands. My hands are tiny.
Kitten. Ow. She's like crawling up Beth's face.
Yeah. She's getting better with the claws, but
that's good.
Something that a friend of mine, a different friend of mine brought up recently was, people, especially this, the anti-SJW, oh my God, PC culture is killing us, and, let's ignore what the government is doing because some college kids somewhere shouted at people. And they say things like, oh, well, there's all this stuff about gender identity and there being a spectrum, and none of that's even confirmed by science. Well, so fucking what? Like, if somebody says, actually, I prefer that you use this pronoun versus that pronoun, then just use it. Like, is it going to kill you to say he instead of she or z, or like, is it going to fucking kill you?
Yeah.
Just do it to be polite. Why would you then say, actually, I don't believe that gender identity has been confirmed by science, so I'm going to decide what to call you?
Because they have to be edgy.
Why would you do that? Like, it's just, it's
like
mind-boggling the amount of effort those types of people will put into being a dick, as opposed to just, oh, okay, if that's what you, I mean, I can't see anybody saying, I can't believe, like, Gad Sad is a big one about making jokes about, oh my God, I think you just assumed my gender. I can't see, and I've never interacted with a trans person who was like, oh my God, did you just assume my gender? You're horrible. I think the ones I've interacted with said, actually, I would rather you say this. Okay, no problem. Like, nobody's freaking out. Like, why? It blows my mind that you can't just be considerate.
Well, it's like Riss put it in the book, if somebody says, well, my name is Jennifer, but I prefer Jen, and you're like, well, I'm sorry, but I think that you're a Jennifer, so I'm just going to call you that. Like, I do that. I hate being called Debbie. Like, I just fucking can't stand it. And so if I meet someone new, and a lot of the times it's because they know a Debbie, and I'll be like, hey, I'm Deborah. And they'll, oh, Debbie, blah, blah, blah. I will very politely say, answer what they said. And they'll, by the way, please don't call me that. I really don't like it. And I've never had a person say, well, my sister's Debbie, and that's how I like it, so I'm going to call you Debbie. Like, no. Like, the only person that's ever done that's my mother, and I yell at her every fucking time anyway.
It goes back to one of the things I said at the beginning of the show. We know who we are more than anyone else does, and to assume otherwise is ignorant. My name is Marissa. Yes, I chose that name, and now it's on my birth certificate. It wasn't what my parents named me, but I am legally allowed to say, my name is Marissa. That is what you should call me. And I don't have to change it for anybody to go, oh, okay. It's really that easy. Just call me Marissa. Have you
personally had that experience of people saying, no, I'm going to call you something else?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I can just think of some off the top of my head. Well, can't you just be dead name? well, I knew you as dead name for so long. It's really hard for me to adjust. Well, is that what's on your birth certificate? Is that what your mother named you? Is that what, is on your school record? Is that what's on your ID? Like all of these things I have heard more than once. And it's just easier to go, okay, because once again, I know me better than you do. So if I ask you to call me a thing, okay, you don't have to get it to respect it. You don't have to understand it to get, to just say, okay, you might not even know what trans means, but let's just assume I know what I want to be called more than you deserve to tell me what I be called.
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unbelievable. It's not unbelievable. It's totally believable. But I can't. I never cease to be shocked and mortified when I see it.
Well, one of the themes that comes across your book a lot is it's not about you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge one that people just don't get. It's you kind of, and I think that's why you repeat it several times in the book, is because it's like, I must beat you over the fucking head with this goddamn phrase because you don't want to listen.
I open, because I do public speeches, and I always open cold. Like, I don't introduce myself. I don't do anything else. I open with a poem that I wrote called Ode to the Blocked. And it is nothing but shitty things that people have said to me. And yeah, it makes people uncomfortable, but it gets your attention. If you'd like, I'll read it right now, just because we're on the topic. All right. You ain't a girl, you a man. You aren't a pretty girl, you're fucking ugly. Jesus, keep it to yourself. Why would you ever want to talk about this? Why would you ever want to do this? Are you sure you don't have multiple personality disorder? Are you sure you're not just depressed? Are you sure you're not just confused? Are you sure you're not just a drag queen? Are you sure it's really Marissa? Why can't you just be gay? Why can't I use the pronouns I know you by? Why can't I just call you the name you were born with? Why can't you just that name? Why can't you just be that body? Wouldn't you want to keep it? Wouldn't you want to have more kids? What will the kids say? What will the parents say? What will other people's parents say? What will the other people say? How can you ever get a girlfriend acting like this? Don't you want to be a provider? Don't you want to step up and be a man? Don't you want to be a man? Aren't you a man? You're just you to me. You've always been you. Your gender doesn't matter to me. Your genitals don't matter to me. Nobody cares about your genitals. Gross. Do you still have a dick? Are you going to get surgery? Like, are those tits real? You're so tall. How will you ever pass? Why can't you just do it in private? Why should we have to change? Why should we have to be different? Why? We don't have to accept you. I'm not transphobic, but I just don't want a dick. I just don't consider you a real woman. I'm straight. Sorry, you're really cute and everything, but I just like vaginas. You understand, right? I'm straight, not gay. That's all that matters. It would be a deal breaker. It's confusing. How would I explain to my parents that I'm dating a tranny, faggot, queer, queen, pillow biter, tranny, shemale, ladyboy, dude in a dress, fake woman, not a woman? It's just science. It's just biology. It's just Jesus. It's just reality. It's just my opinion, man. You need to calm down. You need to understand other opinions. You're immature. You're lazy. You're pretentious. You're dramatic. You need to lay off the sensitivity hormones. Were you always this much of a bitch? You're just too much for me. You need to stop being so defensive. Not everyone is staring at you. Not everyone is afraid of you. Not everyone wants to hurt you. How will you ever get a girlfriend acting like that? Stop saying no and shut up. Just let me touch you. Fine. Stop being such a bitch. Stop resisting. Stop it. Stop it. Take it, bitch. Stop it. Take it. This is what happens when you play hard to get. This is what happens when you dress the way you do. This is what happens when you are who you are. This is what happens when you're transgender. You deserve it. You asked for it. You should expect it. What do you expect? Look where you are. If you've got a penis, use the men's room. If you're trans in the men's room, I'll kick your ass. If my masculinity is so fragile, let me hit you. There's no sexism anymore. Feminism isn't necessary. Feminism is outdated. Feminists hate men. Feminists don't need to include trans women. All women have vaginas. All women were born women. This is how you really feel. This is how you need to act. This is how you need to feel. This is how you need to change. This is how you need to be to make it easier on me. You give a bad name to trans women. You're too radical. You're too angry. You're too bold. You're too confrontational. Nothing's ever going to change their mind. Why even bother? Why not just stealth it? Can't you hide your breasts? Who cares what they think? Just ignore it. They'll go away. Just use a family bathroom. What do you expect? It's their opinion. It's how they were raised. It's how they were taught. It's how they were shown religion. It's not something they can identify with. If you cut it off, won't it hurt? If you get the surgery, you'll still be a man. You'll still be a man. You'll always always be a man. You can't change gender. Gender and sex are the same thing. Gender and sex can't be changed. I have more of a right to your identity than you do. I know better than you. You're just confused. You're just lost. You're just brainwashed. You're just young and stupid. You're being manipulated by your professor. You're on drugs. You're going to hell. You have no respect for your spouse. How do you think they feel? How do you think I feel? It's going to take time to adjust. Didn't you think didn't you think about how this would affect me? Are you sure this is right? Are you sure this is you? Are you sure? Hate.
Wow.
That's how I open
really
my
powerful.
face. Thank you.
You should do that and just post that so that people can really absorb that and see what you have to deal with, because that's it's humbling. I've never said anything like that in my life, and I feel so ashamed that people have treated you that way. That's really overwhelming.
Oh, the whole point of my public speech is to make you a little uncomfortable for a while, because once you break that bubble, things can change, things can be done. And if I can get the attention of someone who might not have listened to me otherwise, then I've done a service. And I always get asked how you can be a better ally. And most of the time, it's just listening. It's really just having an ear open and not assuming someone's experience. It's really that easy. So I do that poem because most people are not used to being confronted like that. And yeah, it might make some people uncomfortable, but I have their attention.
Yeah, hell yeah. Can say that again. And it's so, we who don't have to experience those things, we may have heard, this one or that one, or, I know somebody that got called that. But when you have it so compacted like that, and there, I bet, like when talking about Pastor Carl, that's what he throws at people all fucking day. And over and what if you have to walk by that spot 3 or 4 times during your day, and you got to listen to that bullshit every fucking time you got to go by, like, and day in and day out. Or if you live with somebody that has that, like, and that really kind of quantifies that in just those few minutes, that it literally can be that bad.
And it is. And like I keep saying, I'm one of the lucky ones, and that's just the shit I've had to deal with. I can't imagine what it's like to have lost a job over it, or to have lost a home, or to have lost parents. And I've heard far too many stories from people who have. And if I'm one of the lucky ones, and that's just a sampling of the shit that I get to hear every day, imagine what someone who is, may not have a home or may not be able to support themselves has to deal with. And that's why I scream so loud, because it's not just trying to make a better or an easier life for me. It's so that this kind of shit doesn't keep people oppressed, and it doesn't keep them homeless, or it doesn't keep them from being able to exist as a person in public without such handicap, because nobody deserves that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think a point you make, Chris, is that, I mean, you went to Penn, so you kind of know the Pennsyltucky attitude, and that's why I call it that, is that and dealing with, LGBT issues, I've actually had people say, "Oh, it can't be that bad. I don't know anybody that's lost their job because they're gay or trans or whatever." And I said, "Well, you're looking at one."
Yeah, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, back when it did happen, I had no legal recourse. I mean, you're talking 20 years ago, but I could do. I mean, and people are like, "Oh, that doesn't happen." I'm like, yeah, it does. I've lost 2 promotions because of my sexuality. I mean, did they come right out and say it? Not quite in those words, but they made it blatantly obvious.
Yeah. Just because it hasn't happened to you or happened in your own little bubble doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And the fact that let's just say every single person you knew in the world, it didn't happen to any of them. That's still anecdotal at best. And it doesn't, just because it doesn't, it's not happening to you personally, or it doesn't happen in a way that you can accept it as valid, doesn't mean it's not there. It's like the white people who say, well, there's no racism anymore because I don't see it. Well, maybe that's because you're not looking. Maybe you're not paying attention. Or maybe your attitude of it's probably not that big of a deal drives people away from telling you their experience, or telling you, hey, someone misgendered me today and it really upset. Because, hey, I've already seen how you react to the idea of it. You think I'm going to come to you and try to explain why I'm upset? You've already told me I'm not a big deal. Why would I tell you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No. And the crossover, that's the type of attitude I've been dealing with as far as the whole, healthcare issue, because it became really obvious to me after I had my first stroke. I didn't have insurance. And by my second stroke, I did, and I was treated totally different. The debate rages, and people are like, well, that's never happened. I was like, yeah, it happens every day. I mean, it's just like you said, ignoring it ain't going to make it go away.
Yeah, I get people, when I've debated people about American healthcare before, and oh well, they're not allowed to turn people away at the hospital. I'm like, I already have proof that happens. She's sitting right over there, like you said, the minute they found out you had no insurance, they couldn't get you out of there fast enough, and you were having you had a fucking stroke. Like, I'm no doctor, but from what you said, the first thing I was like, that's a fucking stroke. Go to the goddamn hospital. And they're saying, oh, it's not a stroke. And, how many appointments in a neurologist later? Oh, yeah, it's a stroke. I'm like, well, gee, the dumbass who didn't take science past the 9th grade fucking knew that. Like, come on.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, I've had people tell me, and it kind of crosses over a little bit, that you're not going to lose your health care. I have on my profile picture, if the AHCA passes, I will die. And I've had people tell me I'm being hyperbolic, and it's like, no, I won't have medications, therefore I will die. And it's the same thing. It translates over, like Chris, I've been pretty much in what I've dealt with as far as discrimination, being, having a mental illness and being a lesbian and also being an atheist. I get a little bit pushback here and there. I get more online than I do in real life, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So annoying. It's just like, I think for a lot of people, it was Leela Elkhorn's death that kind of made us trans aware, if I can use that word. It really made me realize that I got a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And we all do. There's no day that goes by that I don't learn something from other trans people or experiences or anything, because we don't know. And we don't know everyone's experiences. We don't know what they're going through. And that's okay. We don't have to be valid. We don't have to know exactly what's going on in order to have empathy for another person. What you were talking about.
And there's the word I've been waiting for. Empathy.
What you've been talking about. People have a choice of saying, that makes me uncomfortable, I should listen. Or, that makes me uncomfortable, I need to come up with a reason to shut down this conversation so I can go back to not giving a shit. And the first one's a lot harder. It is a lot easier to sit there and say, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I need to go away, or I need to do something to make this stop. But I can say to you, because you're on this show right now, and to anybody else who has an experience like this, you are valid. Your concerns are valid. You are important, and you deserve the right to exist, and you deserve the right to be treated fairly. And anyone who is going to come on and say, well, they're looking to invalidate your word or your experience, and neither are correct. You are entitled to how you feel, and you do not deserve to have that undercut because somebody doesn't like it.
Yeah. And I think that's what it boils down to, is somebody doesn't like it.
And you know what? Like, there's nothing wrong necessarily with not liking something, but it's the feeling is fine, but it's what you do with it. You know, like it's okay if you're, like you said before, to be attracted to some people and not other people, but that doesn't mean that you get to be an asshole to the people that you're not attracted to. And because there's other people out there that are going to be like, oh, no, not that person, at you. And you're hopefully never going to know that.
Yeah.
Because
it's like another thing, like the fact that I'm poly. You know, sometimes people will be like, oh, isn't that like cheating? It's like, I'm not comfortable with that. Well, good for you. Don't be poly. Like, you know,
Exactly.
I'm not attracted to cis men. My husband is dating a cis man. That doesn't mean that I invalidate his relationship because it's not what I'm into. That's not how this works. I'm happy for him because Greg makes Aiden happy. And that's all that matters. You know, that's really all it is. Hey, does this make you happy? Is this something you want? Are you consenting? Great. If you like it, great. It's not my business, and I don't have to endorse your thing by respecting your right to have it.
And you don't even need to know about someone else's thing. You know, that you don't even have to know it happens. You know, like this idea that, well, I think somebody might be different, therefore I have to know every single detail about everything that makes them different. No, you don't.
Yeah. People tend to exoticize or fetishize trans people too, and they confuse that for acceptance. But there are times, like on this conversation, where we know that you're asking a question because you genuinely want to know. It's curiosity, it's empathy. And there are other times where it's like, Callie Wright was saying this on an interview that we were both on last night. They want to be shocked. They want to go, oh my God, can you believe that? And we know the difference because we've had to deal with it enough.
Yeah.
No, but it's like our debate we had with Wingnut from Thailand. Remember how he's like, well, I have lots of transvestite friends who, remember that?
Yeah.
It was basically a shock and awe statement. She was dumber than rocks, but it's like it just made me think of that. I guess
this idiot that came on my Facebook page, and she was getting into all kinds of other conspiracy shit, but she was totally trying to invalidate trans people's right to use the fucking bathroom. And then she's like, oh, well, I live in Thailand and I have all kinds of tranny friends and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you don't even fucking get it, you stupid twit. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not about bathrooms. It never was. It's because they can't ban us from being in public, so they just make it as impossible as they can for us to exist in public. You know what trans people did before the Republicans started this debate because they lost the gay marriage fight? Use the fucking bathroom like everybody else.
Yes.
Yep. And nobody knew.
And you know what pisses me the fuck off about that whole thing is that the children. I'm like, okay, I am an abuse survivor. I'm an incest survivor. And every time they trot out the whole, well, we have to protect the children. I'm like, will you fucking stop using children who have suffered pain for your motherfucking bigot ass agenda, because you're just using them for nothing. And you don't give a fuck about children because you never once, if you're assuming that every transgender person in a women's washroom is really a perverted man in a dress, then why are you not worried about all these other perverted men that you assume are in with little boys in the bathroom? Like, fuck the little boys, who cares? Like,
no, that's what the Catholic priests do.
I know.
But we're not going to ban them from the restroom.
I've been saying that forever. I'm like, if you want to ban anybody from a fucking bathroom, clergy, ban those fuckers. But that really incenses me as an abuse survivor that, that we're basically being used to further that bigotry with no validate. There's no fucking reason to even think that. It just.
Well, there's no statistics to even back it up. I mean, and this is one of the things I brought up in the conversation. If stories that there are that the Reich likes to use as, we're protecting the children. None of the stories even add up. Even one is, and it's out of Toronto, Canada, believe it or not. There's no statistics to show that transgender individuals attack children.
I'm more scared of Republicans in the bathroom.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Right, ban Congress from using the bathroom and we'd all be safer.
And if you want to talk about children, I have 2 of them. And when I came out to them, you know what they said? Okay, why didn't you tell us sooner? That's it. Oh my God, the horror.
Well, right, like my daughter said something, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, she said something about how girls can't marry girls. And I said, sure they can. Girls can marry girls and boys can marry boys. People love who they love and they marry who they want. And she said, oh, okay, can I have a marshmallow? So it's like it's not that people are like, well, what am I going to say to my children? You say people love who they love and they marry who they want to marry, and that's the way it works. Yep. And they accept it. Like they're not going to have a conniption of, they're an existential crisis because they found out that women can marry women and men can marry men. That they just want a cookie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can convince little children that there's such a thing as a talking fucking donkey, why do you think that, men loving men and men loving women is such a fucking stretch?
And, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I think she's smarter than most of this country. Aiden and I were discussing one of these issues, as we do, because they don't go away. And my 9-year-old daughter, I feel the need to reemphasize that, just looks at us and goes, why does anybody care what gender you are? Done. 9-year-old wins.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And that sort of idea that if you can't immediately gender someone, that there's a problem with that, why is that a thing? Who cares? They're a person. Just call them what they asked to be called and be done with it.
It's not about you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about you. Speaking of it's not about you, by the way, Todd is having a conniption over there.
Good.
Everybody gives a fuck, but
drink his tears, Marissa.
Yep, I feed on them when I record the sister getting out of hand. So congratulations, Todd. You're getting the heck assist this week.
Woohoo! By the way, if you want any particular quotes, that you can go back and read that afterwards on the Spreaker site. So
yeah, you made the mistake of someone who has made an art out of tearing people like you apart. So I really don't feel bad for you, because you could have not been an asshole and you made the choice to do so. So not my problem.
There you go. Well, we got about 15 minutes or so left. Marissa, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we start wrapping stuff up?
Well, sure. I'm just about to put out my 4th book since coming out. It's called Voice in the Dark, and it's a novel written through the perspective of several high school characters who are dealing with corruption and something that's going on in their school. And contributing to this book, as most of my books have other contributors, the foreword's written by Dan Errol, and my friends No Illusions, Melina Barrett, Karen Garst, and Matthew O'Neill also contributed essays to the book. That comes out July 14th, the same day as my 100th episode of Inciting Incident, which is also the live show in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So if you can make that, tickets are on sale on our Facebook page and the Eventbrite page. And headlining it will be Chris Cluey. And joining us also will be the Scathing Crew, Opening Arguments, and Gaytheist Manifesto. So it's going to be almost a mini ReasonCon reunion. I have 4 books. Like I said, this is the 4th one coming out. The one we talked about most is called The PC Lie, How American Voters Decided I Don't Matter. My first novel under this name was called False Start. And I just released a small book of poetry and essays called Silent Dreams. All of them are available on Amazon and through my website if you want them personally signed, marissmccool.com. I host the Inciting Incident podcast, and I co-host The Sister Getting Out of Hand, which is a non-cis podcast, for the non-cis, by the non-cis. And I co-host that with Ari Stillman from Gaytheist Manifesto. Just started a new podcast with my husband for specifically trans males. It's called FTM. The 4th episode of that came out today, and Aiden is the host of that. I'm just there to look pretty and kind of guide his conversation. So I'm also on a podcast called Doubting Dogma, which is a former Mormon sort of coming to terms with, coming out of the closet as atheist and everything else. So I'm busy. In a couple days, on the 14th, I'll be in Flint, Michigan, giving a speech, and I travel all the time. So if you want to come see me, unless you're Todd, feel free to hit me up. My email's always open. My Facebooks are always open. I'm always willing to be there for someone who needs them, or I'm willing to tear someone apart if they feel like being an asshole. And congratulations, Todd, you were the latter.
Awesome. Do you have time to breathe ever?
Sunday.
Okay. I'm just I'm getting tired just listening to that. Wow. But no, that's amazing. And I love that you're doing everything you can to get as many perspectives out there and as many topics out there. And, there's never too many podcasts, really, and there's never too many perspectives, and you can never say too much about important things. So when I was hanging out at No Illusion's house, Secret Lair, I'll never forget what he said. When he first got started, that Cogdis were the first people to really give him a boost in an appearance. It's like the philosophy, it seems to be in the Atheist Skeptic podcast community, is we want to raise as many people as we can up with us. We're not competing with each other. We're trying to, we're in this together. And I've kind of tried to adopt the same mentality, especially as far as my books go, because if I have this position where people can read my work, I want to let them know that there's other voices who are willing to talk about these topics. PC Lie, Andrew Torres, Eli Bosnick, my husband Aiden, they contributed. False Start, Lucinda Lusions wrote something for it. My screenwriting professor, Kathy Van Cleve, wrote something for it. And you heard who I listed for Voice in the Dark. It's very important to me to have other writers and other people promoted and featured and shared, because I know an awful lot of people who learned about other podcasts or shows or activists because they heard them on my show. And I know I wouldn't have that platform without people like Thomas Smith, Cognitive Dissonance, being willing to either come on my show or let me come on their show. So none of us did this alone. It didn't happen in a vacuum. So I'm always happy to help raise as many people as possible. If I'm trending upward, I want to bring as many people as I can with me. Awesome. Yeah, because there's no reason to compete, because we all have different things to say. We all have different styles, and we're not going to appeal to everybody. So there's nothing wrong with that. And, we do.
We obviously don't appeal to top.
But, we don't have, 50 million listeners, and we don't give a fuck. We just say it because it needs to be said.
Well, it's like the other day, somebody asked me why I do my twat waffle episode, because I only get 5, 6, 7 hits, and I'm like, I do it because I think it's fun. I don't really give a shit if anybody listens to me or not. If they do, so be it.
If you're doing it to only be successful, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Like,
exactly.
The Sister Getting Out of Hand podcast gets like 300 hits, and I don't care because it's fun, and I get to hang out with Ari Stillman once a week and make fun of people. Like, I'm not doing it to like make a living off of it. I'm doing it because it's fucking fun.
And something like that is going to be cathartic for you, I would imagine. And so it benefits everything else that you do anyway, because it's an outlet for yourself.
Yeah, and I
would drive people at work totally bonkers.
Yeah, it's like the emails that I've gotten because of that show alone, where it's kind of helped other trans people, non-binary people, or just people who want to learn what the trans experience is. Those emails alone are worth every second that I have to put into it. And that goes for all my work too, but especially that one, because this is a community that, you know, there's me and Callie Wright and a few others. There's the Ginger Snaps. There's By Any Means. There's some, you know, skeptic LGBT podcasts out there, but not a lot. And even if there was a lot, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start them, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't support them. But just to give you an idea, you guys met me at Reason Con. Do you know how many times I was asked if I was Callie Wright?
Oh no!
And do you know how many times Celeste was asked if she was Marissa? Like,
no.
If we're trying to be more inclusive and more visible, the fact that someone said, "Oh, that looks like a trans woman. I bet that's the one trans woman I know." It's like we're still fighting to be visible in our own community. So whenever someone says, "Oh God, there's so many trans podcasters out there," I'm like, "Yeah, name 5."
Exactly.
But I can tell you how many straight white cis podcasters I can name right off the top of my head.
Shit ton, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you know what? You've got to, like, some people might bitch, well, what do you mean you have a cis for, or a trans for trans podcast? Why the fuck not? Like, why can you not have something that is really on your level, in your world, and in your experience? What's wrong with that?
It's from the Todds of the world.
Yeah. It's like where, you know, some people say, well, why can't I come into the LGBT Center and learn? And it's like, because that's the one place we can go where we don't have to stop every 5 seconds and explain what a word means, or explain, you know, it's like some people think safe spaces is protection from the world, but sometimes it's just a place to go where we don't have to explain or justify our existence again. And the Sister Getting Out of Hand podcast is a place for trans people to know that they have a voice, they have a community, and sometimes it's not about cis people being involved. Sometimes it's not about us, you know, making sure that they know that we appreciate allies. Sometimes we just want to bitch about people, and that's okay. But the difference is, then they say, aren't you being exclusionary? Aren't you discriminating? Well, okay, go to literally any other place. If you know, the LGBT Center isn't letting you in, oh, that's sad. Where are you going to go? Literally anywhere else. You know, you're upset because they won't let you hit on the lesbians in the gay bar. Oh no, if only there was a place you could go where you could feel comfortable hitting on women who didn't want to talk to you, Todd. Yeah, but I'm going to go to the one place in town where the women are interested in other women. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's totally the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, totally. No, it's mind-boggling. But like you've said many, many, many times, it's not about you. No. And you know what? I'm okay with it not being about me. It's, you know, like, I don't need it.
It's the same as when trans women of color speak. I know that's the time I need to shut the fuck up, because as shitty as it can be being a trans person in America, I have no business telling trans people of color what their experience is like. So there's all times when sometimes we are the ones advocating for a position, and there's sometimes where we need to shut the fuck up and listen. And you know, some straight cis white people will always say, well, what about ours? What about, you know, our thing? It's like, look around. You are considered your own societal default. The reason we have to have a Pride Month, the reason we have to have a Black History Month, is because we still haven't gotten to the point where we can just be who we are and it's okay. You've probably never been questioned when you go to the bathroom if you belong in there. You've probably never been questioned in a restaurant if you're going to get service or not. Recently, my girlfriend and I were discriminated against in freaking Staples, and all we went in to do was buy a fucking ruler. That's probably never happened to you. So stop wondering why it seems like so many people are speaking up for themselves, and figure out why they still fucking have to.
Yeah. And you know what? If a cis white person decides that they need a voice, you can go start a fucking podcast. It's not that hard.
No.
I've done it once or twice.
Yeah.
Not as many times as you have, but you know.
When will the straight cis white males finally have a voice in this country?
I know. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Marissa. I really appreciate the time, especially since you ran your ass off a plane to get here. So really.
Anytime, y'all are good people, and I was thrilled to meet you, and I'm glad we got to spend some time together here. I'm willing to come back anytime. So if you ever need a purple trans girl for like a panel or something, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. That's yay. And I laugh my ass off too, which is great because I still have visions of the sentient giant lava lamp spraying. Like, you should have seen me laughing my head off on the fucking porch at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was awesome.
Okay. Of all the things I wrote, that's the one. I love it.
Well, that's the one that I found the most entertaining. I learned lots of other stuff, but as far as entertainment value goes, that was like, you know what? You need shirts with that.
I have one right now that was something that Pastor Carl yelled at me, paraphrased, of course, and it says, "I'm a trans sorceress and God hates volleyball." So that's the most recent one I have.
Oh man, that man, I know we're sort of wrapping up, but the fact that they won't let you counter that guy, because I would have been parked in front of his fucking ass every free minute I had if I was there.
If you ever want to see the video of it, it is on my Facebook. So feel free to look up in my videos because it's there and it's been viewed thousands of times. So
I was planning to go and find that because if I can't yell at him in person, at least I can yell at him on the screen.
Plus, who has a better coming out story than yelling in the face of a hate preacher? I'm transgender. Fuck you.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, ladies. So, Beth, where can we find you?
Easiest way, Twitter, Dune998. I am on pretty much all the social media under my name, Beth A. Hambridge. That's YouTube, Facebook, SocialNet, Google. But I've been focusing more on the videos instead of the writing.
Right.
Find me. Just let me know it's from the show so I don't ignore you.
You think you're some weird conspiracy stalker person.
I like the weird conspiracy stalkers. Some of those are fun, but I haven't had any lately.
Oh well.
You hear that, Todd? Are you still listening?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Todd was spouting a lot of conspiracy shit in there too. I just didn't get into it. That's a whole other show. If you
Yeah, I got a few new ones.
Let's just say Todd and conspiracy nuts are probably very well acquainted.
I think Todd and his right hand on a lonely Saturday night are very well acquainted.
Oh, burn. Oh, goodness. Morgan, where do we find you?
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Mostring. That's MOSTRING, because I have to spell it because my accent's so thick. And you can also find me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer. Just let me know you found me from the show and you're not a, I guess, stalker crazy person. And you can also catch me on the Bi Skeptical podcast with Trav Mamone. Comes out about every 2 weeks. You can find that on iTunes and Spreaker and Stitcher. We don't have an episode for this past week, though, because our entire recording got deleted. So.
No! Damn. Ugh, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, and then my office chair broke on this show last week, so it was like
I have to go back and watch that. Well, you said
I cut the camera off because I felt myself slide backwards, and I was like, and it was like a very serious moment, and so I was like, oh, I should probably like cut my camera off before I ruin this, because I was like, something's happening, not sure what. And then like as soon as I cut the camera and the audio off, like my ass hit the floor and like the leg of my chair like went like across the room, and I was just like, really? Like, what the fuck?
It's that Murphy fucker, I tell you. Someone needs to like do something about that guy. Tracy, where can we find you?
My Facebook page is Godless Mama, and I'm on Twitter at The Godless Mama, and my blog is godlessmama.com. And you can also find the lovely Morgan along with me on Facebook as The Political Feminist.
Awesome. Great. Well, as people might know, I also pop up on Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. on Holy Crap, the vlogcast.
Yay!
Several panelists with the Shujin Tribble. And yeah, there's like 6 or 8 of us, depending on who's available, from anywhere from Paris, France to out in Edmonton, Calgary area, all over. So yeah, we do that.
Shujin, just a quick personal note, Shujin did more to acknowledge my graduation than my own family did. So Shujin is special to me.
He's pretty awesome guy. He is. Absolutely. So yeah, come check us out on Holy Crap, the vlogcast. And we will be back here, of course, next Monday at 9:30 p.m. And next week, we are going to be talking to the Atheist Ranger. I've been doing some of his Sunday night hangouts and acquainted with some other YouTubers. And so he's going to come and hang out with us next week and talk about he's up in your neck of the woods, Tracy. He's just moved back to New England from was he in Delaware, I think. So he's much happier up north. But anyway, we'll be yapping with him next week. So there's that. And as we always like to do, we just take a minute and talk about the Whitefield's Educational Foundation and the Taylor Scholarship. That was, of course, started by David Michael of My Book of Mormon podcast, continuing on with Bryce and that. And they provide counseling for people who are leaving or wanting to leave religion, based in Utah. So they do tend to talk to more ex-Mormons, but they do try to help anyone who requests it. And the Taylor Scholarship provides that counseling for people who aren't able to afford to pay, even though they try to keep the cost down. You know, you're not going to survive if you don't have any income. So the Taylor Scholarship helps that for people who just can't afford it. So you can find that at whitefieldseducational.org/My Book of Mormon podcast. And if you want to find a good charity to donate to, we certainly think they're worth it. And we do have a Patreon account. We use that to pay for our Spreaker hosting. So if you feel like throwing us a few bucks, we'd certainly appreciate that as well. And that's under Beyond the Trailer Park. So, yeah. So, until next week, I will leave us, as we always do, with Dave Foda's Human Creed for All of Mankind, and we'll see everyone here next week.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.